Hi everyone, my name is Kate Farley and I am a cultural anthropologist working at the Missouri Botanical Garden in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm very sorry that I couldn't be with all of you live today because I am traveling, but I am grateful to have the opportunity to explain a little bit about my work. So, as an anthropologist, my job is to understand people's behaviors and beliefs from their own point of view. And this is really important when it comes to conservation work, where we're concerned about harmful human impacts on the environment. So when we talk about ginseng conservation, the spotlight is usually on ginseng diggers themselves. I personally don't think it's fair to place exclusive blame for declining ginseng populations on the backs of diggers, because ginseng populations are, of course, also impacted by everything from habitat loss due to mining and logging and building to high deer populations to potentially climate change. But unfortunately, we're not going to stop climate change or large-scale commercial or industrial development anytime soon. So we're going to need to work with ginseng diggers in order to achieve the goals that we want. Specifically, we need to get ginseng diggers to harvest less ginseng and plant more ginseng to replace what's been lost. And we need to do this in an equitable and culturally appropriate way. So my work involves interviewing ginseng diggers, growers, dealers about their experiences. Most of the diggers I interviewed are hobbyists, people who go out for maybe a few weekends every year hoping to make enough money to get some extra nice Christmas presents for their families, or maybe cover the cost of heating oil for the winter. Some of the people I interviewed are people who harvest enough ginseng each year to make up a significant chunk of their annual income. And the majority of diggers I spoke with, not all of course, but the majority, do engage in at least some illegal harvesting practices. And that might be digging out of season, digging while trespassing, harvesting wild seeds to plant elsewhere, things like that. And some of them don't fully necessarily realize that their specific harvesting practices are illegal. Some of them do and don't care. And some of them might think it's like this is, just this once, it's an emergency, that have that kind of mentality, or might simply just mistrust the law and just, don't like being told what to do. And it's very easy to attribute malicious motivations to these ginseng diggers. You might think they're greedy, they don't care about nature, they just want to make a quick buck, they just want instant gratification, they need money to buy drugs, things like that. And I hear people say these things like that all the time. But painting wild ginseng diggers with this kind of a broad brush isn't helpful. The ginseng diggers who I work with in my research have taught me that this situation is a lot more nuanced than that. Many of them are really proud of this long Appalachian cultural heritage of ginseng harvesting that, connects them to figures in the past, like, renowned figures like Daniel Boone. And then they want their children and grandchildren to be able to do the same thing and continue the tradition. Many of them, to one degree or another, even some of the ones who engage in illegal practices, consider themselves stewards of ginseng by planting seeds in the wild or by maintaining private ginseng patches created from transplanted rootlets. And some of these practices, these, sort of what I term in some of my writing folk conservation practices, are in line with the law and what the regulations require, and some of them are not. And there's a great deal of frustration and resentment among many of the ginseng diggers I spoke with concerning the official rules for ginseng harvest. So things like harvest seasons, harvesting, rules about selling roots with the neck intact, planting seeds in the vicinity of where the root was harvested, stuff like that. There's the perception that the rules are made by ivory tower academics or clueless politicians who just don't understand what ginseng diggers actually face on the ground. And why should they have to listen to what people who don't know what their lives are like telling them what to do? And it doesn't matter if this isn't strictly true, as far as these being clueless politicians making these decisions, but that's what a lot of people think. And we need ginseng diggers on our side as partners, so we need to show them that we actually do care about their lives and livelihoods in order to get them on our side. So how do we actually build these partnerships? Working with trusted community members is one way to approach this. people who are already well known as good stewards or good ginsengers in their communities who are likely to be listened to by others. The late Chester Crane is a good example of a community partner. He was a generational Appalachian in Southwest Virginia who harvested, grew, and bought ginseng. He had a very active social media presence and tirelessly worked to educate his community about responsible harvesting. These kinds of partnerships should be a two-way street and should inform policy. And I can say right now that many ginseng harvesters see, for one example, rules about seed planting as counterproductive because it prevents people from legally establishing new ginseng patches using native seed instead of importing seed from Wisconsin or Canada, which might have a genetic profile that is less well adapted to the local climate. And of course, developing these kinds of partnerships isn't a complete solution. There's always going to be a minority of ginseng diggers who dig too much and too indiscriminately. And this is really the group that's responsible for most of the damage to ginseng populations. And with these kinds of diggers, yes, there is a role for restriction and law enforcement. And then in an ideal world, we'd probably also have good living wage jobs available for people to reduce the temptation to turn to excessive ginseng harvesting for money. But for everyone else, though, I think there is room to see ginseng diggers in a much less adversarial light. Ginseng can thrive if it is stewarded and used and harvested appropriately by humans. But getting to that point will require building stronger and respectful relationships between diggers and conservationists. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Abby Artemisia of the Wander School here in the Appalachian Mountains of Western North Carolina. And just for y'all, I wore my ginseng shirt from United Plant Savers and brought my tincture of American ginseng to show you. And I am excited to talk to you today about ginseng. I'm a botanist, an herbalist, and a forager, also a gardener and an author. I wrote the book, The Herbal Handbook for Homesteaders. And I do lots of things and wear many hats through my school, the Wander School. It is a nonprofit and we offer herbal and educational reparations and help provide herbal remedies and herbs to at-risk and underserved communities. We have an herb school curriculum, Wild Crafted Herb School, and there's so much that we do and that I do. But I am here today to talk to you about ginseng, of course. And I love ginseng. Whenever I find it, it is like this beautiful, amazing surprise because I rarely see it in the wild, to be honest. I'm originally from Ohio and sometimes I would see it a little bit more there when I knew what I was looking for. It does tend to hide, but unfortunately it's super threatened in the wild, so it is a really big treat to find it. And as a botanist, I know that it has this palmate leaf compound leaf, so that's what I'm always looking for, and that's what the poachers are looking for too. So it's always suggested that when you do find it in the wild, you're almost always gonna leave it there to protect it, and you can pick a few of these, 2 or 3 of these leaflets off, and that way it can continue to photosynthesize, but it won't be as easily recognizable to poachers who might destroy the population. But of course we can plant and grow our own ginseng plants and talk to United Plant Savers about getting your own, and then it won't be threatening the wild population. I learned from my friend Jeannie Dunn from Red Moon Herbs that oftentimes the leaves of ginseng have just as much ginsenosides, one of what's believed to be the most active phytochemicals, as the roots do. So why not just harvest the leaves instead of the roots and leave the roots there to continue to grow and reproduce? So that's what this is. This is my tincture of ginseng leaf. So you can see it right there. And way more sustainable, as I said. Sometimes I'll just chew the leaves, of course, if I find a big population of them. But sometimes if I'm in the woods, I'll just take one leaf and chew it up or put it in my water bottle, because it is such an amazing herb. In herbalism, ginseng is what is known as an adaptogen, and there are several species of ginseng, but this main American species, Panax quinquefolius, it is one that I just love so much, and I truly believe that we should work with the herbs that are growing right around us because we are both adapted to the same habitat, and they create the medicine that we need. So adaptogens are anything that help our bodies adapt to stress of any kind. So the kind of stress that we all think of when we say stress, right? That psychological stress, it's great for, but also any kind of mental or physical stress. And ginseng is what is also known as a tonic herb. So for most of us, tonic herbs are going to be safe to take every day on an ongoing basis. Of course, you want to check with your healthcare practitioner and do your research before you take any herb on a daily basis. And it can be too stimulating for some people, because though it does really nourish our nervous system, it can be stimulating as well. Now, the nice thing is that American ginseng is considered to be less stimulating than Asian ginseng. And American ginseng is often bought from different places in Asia for its various effects. So it is super wonderful, but really think about what effect you want it to have. Do you need more stimulation or maybe a little bit less stimulation, a little bit more tonifying? You can find out more about that if you look up the species in works of traditional Chinese medicine as well. But it is wonderful, throughout history, has been worked with for any kind of fatigue or debility, convalescing from long-term illnesses or short-term illnesses, and helps with brain function as well, and also tonifying for quite a variety of organs in our body. So a wonderful all-over adaptogen. And tends to just make us feel good. It's got that little bit of a kick to it too if you chew on it, on the root or the leaves with those ginsenosides in there. So it's a wonderful plant. Honestly, I don't tend to work with it a whole lot just because it is threatened in the wild and I don't find it that much. So I'm definitely a big believer in sustainability and protecting the wild plants, and I only harvest it when there's a big abundance of it or I or somebody else is growing it. So I hope that you learned something today and you will protect this amazing plant as well.
How can humans help American ginseng thrive? Ginseng has a long 18-month period from seed to becoming a seedling. If the plant drops a seed, there is a 1% chance of it becoming a plant. Or if a person would plant the seeds near an existing or harvested plant, there is a 16% chance of a new plant. These low germination rates are because the seed needs to survive the summer when it would dry out and not be viable. If, however, the American ginseng seeds are stratified, meaning that they are kept in moist sand from the fall when the red berries are present to the next fall when they are planted, the germination rate goes up over 90%. Thus, if humans stratified ginseng seed, they could help bring this plant past the summertime drying out season.
Along the Appalachian Trail, searching for the Holy Grail. That's where I found the herb they call ginseng. Deep down in the woods, that's where I got the goods. The herb, it turns the autumn into spring. Ginseng, ginseng. We got sing-along ginseng. Makes an older man cocksure, makes a younger man endure. Makes an older woman younger, makes a